and analytics across your enterprise. We're going to record this session, right? So anyone that needs to revert back, we'll send this out. Essentially, let's go through some housekeeping real fast. There's going to be a survey at the end of our presentation. We'd love for you to fill that out, answer any questions, some follow-ups that you may or may not have about some of the content you're seeing. We'd love to continue to follow up. Also, as noted on the registration, there's hoodies. That'll be a way for us to be able to contact you as well. There's a Q&A. If you could post your questions throughout the session, that would be extremely helpful. What we're going to do is we're going to table all the Q&A for the end. We have a good portion of time to answer any questions. Chris, if we can go to the next slide, please. So let me go ahead and introduce some of our key speakers today. I'll be moderating. My name is Robert Costanza. For those that don't know me, I'm our security practice director here at Aspire. And I'm going to go backwards, right? So we're going to start with me kicking things off. We're going to end with John Rossiter. What I want to introduce John. I'm happy to call him friend. I'm happy to call him coworker. Also a Yankees fan. For those of you out there that are Yankees fans, you give John a pat on the back there. John is our Chief Information Security Officer. Also on the line, not referenced as a presenter, Doug Stevens, our Vice President of Security. We're going to go through, essentially a case study through our managed detection and response service. I want to introduce Crystal Moody. Crystal is a senior project manager at Cisco. She's going to go through and discuss a product called Secure Cloud Analytics. She's from the business unit. If we can go to the next slide, Chris. And it really just let's roll through the agenda real fast, right? Essentially what we're going to see is the demo going through what the product entails. Cisco Secure Analytics. We'll go through the case study. John's going to talk through network traffic analytics and how it plays a key role. One of the things that I want to talk about is just kind of set up how and why we're here, right? When you think of a threat actor or attacker, vulnerabilities, or someone trying to get into your network, right? It comes in a plethora of different ways, right? An attacker can get access to applications, right? We can get access to systems. We can access company information. We can access network and people. And these are the main attack vectors, right? When you really look at it. Technology continues to be all around us. This work from home scenario that we've all been forced into has, although been helpful, but also created some anomalies, right? With being able to use the technology around us. Is it secure, right? We use technology in our cars, whether it's to get us places. We're constantly using new tools, essentially, right? If you ask Alexa, Siri, or Google, they could turn on your lights, right? Some of these tools are not only in our homes, but they're also in our places of business. So what the key focus of, and there goes Alexa. Alexa, stop. So, when and just like that, you can't get away from the technology as much as it's there to help you. It also hinders you too. So going through this, the whole point of this is giving everyone the visibility, right? If there's one word or topic that we hope to express to you today is taking back the visibility into your network. We're going to talk a lot around mean time to detection, what the typical threat is, and how both Stealthwatch Analytics, right, secure analytics, and both Aspire Managed Detection and Response Service can help your business. So with further ado, Crystal, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Thank you, Christopher. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you perfectly fine. Yep.
Thank you. All right, so Cisco Secure Cloud Analytics, formerly known as Stealthwatch Cloud. So you may hear me use those names interchangeably. We've just rebranded with the Cisco portfolio. But Cisco Secure Cloud Analytics is a network-based analytics tool. And so the first thing we talk about, like Christopher was talking about before, is visibility. So Secure Cloud Analytics uses the network telemetry, so the flow data that's being natively generated by your network to understand everything that's operating in your environment. So some of the mantras that we use is, you can't hide from the network. If you've got a device that's communicating on the network, there's evidence there. There's a piece of history that communication occurred. So by using network-based telemetry, you're able to identify every device that's operating in your network, right? Whether it's IoT or a mobile device, even things that are operating up in the public cloud, we have visibility into. So Stealthwatch Cloud starts by giving you that complete inventory of everything that's operating in your environment and visibility into all the connections that it's making throughout your network. So we're going to identify that entity, and you'll see as I go into the demo how we're automatically classifying every device into a role. We're also keeping a general ledger of all of those conversations that are happening across the network. So not deep into the data, it doesn't even matter if it's encrypted or not. It's really just trying to understand which devices normally connect to other devices over different ports and protocols, and trying to understand what normal behavior is of your network. Which devices commonly talk to other devices, and what's that normal pattern of behavior. Once we've established that pattern of behavior, we can identify anything that may be anomalous or indicative that there could be something taking place in your network that's not normal, or could even indicate that you've been compromised. So again, trying to understand everything that's out there and keep that general ledger so that we can provide that advanced threat detection, as well as the ability for our customers to respond to the threats that we're detecting. Next slide. All right, so I won't spend too long on this, but this is really the core of what we do at Stealthwatch Cloud, or Secure Cloud Analytics. So first thing we do is we're going to collect telemetry, or the inputs, right? So whether that's net flow data or other types of flow telemetry, data from ICE, data from threat intelligence feeds coming from Cisco Talos, as well as other external feeds, information around endpoints or system and account logs. And we're going to put all that together. And really the secret sauce of Stealthwatch Cloud is what we call dynamic entity modeling. So using those data and inputs, we are able to infer the role of the device, right? So the first thing we're going to say is, well, this is an iOS device, or this is a Windows workstation, or that's an Alexa device. Hopefully mine didn't hear me. So we can automatically assign the roles of all of the resources on your network, giving you that instant visibility of everything you've got operating in the environment. We then start grouping those devices together based on how they normally communicate with other devices in the network. Are they doing things similar to other roles? And then we start mapping the consistency, right? Are these devices behaving the way we expect them to behave? Are they obeying known good behavior? Are they, communicating the way they should and the way we expect them to communicate with other devices on the network? And the other thing that we do that's quite unique is we generate a forecast of how this device should behave. So we're not just looking at historic data on one device, but we're looking at, this device or this entity in association with the other entities that have been put in its group, and the consistency over time in order to create this forecast as to how we think this device should be behaving in the future, and looking for any sort of deviation from that. So what that results in is us being able to detect compromises that may not have been prevented at the perimeter, and looking for odd types of behavior that could indicate that you're in trouble, or possibly under attack. So go to the next slide. So some of the use cases, and I'll show you this during the demo again, but it's really around abnormal activity that could be an indicator of compromise. So the modeling in Stealthwatch Cloud, we see a new IP address, we start modeling it, okay, it's communicating with this other set of IPs, we're going to classify it into a role, okay, this is a database server based on the behavior and the communications that it's having, I'm going to automatically infer that this is a database server. I've now reached my baseline. And I see that everything is acting normally until all of a sudden we've got a new external connection. And I'll talk you through this in the demo as well, but Stealthwatch Cloud makes what we call observations. Observations are really just building blocks or interesting facts of things that are happening on the network. So, you know, this database server makes a new external connection with something it hasn't connected to before. Okay, that may not be malicious, it's just interesting. But when you pair that with a new high throughput connection to that new external IP address, now we think there might be something that the security team should take a look at, right? And so that's when we may trigger an alert for database exfiltration. And so that's really what we do. Stealthwatch Cloud, again, is about visibility into everything operating on the network, providing advanced threat detection for things like insider threat, lateral movement, data hoarding, data exfiltration, and using behavior-based modeling to identify that and using the network as that sensor. So the native telemetry that's already being generated by your network in order to identify this type of activity. And with that, I will go into a quick demo. There we go. All right, so here we are in my demo environment. You can see this is a SaaS delivered product, so I just navigate to the URL and I've logged in. I'm here at the dashboard. You can see a high-level summary of the number of alerts that I have open, 2 over the last 7 days. So not a very noisy product, but when there is an alert, it is usually worth investigating. You can see traffic summaries, number of devices that are operating on the network and being modeled by Stealthwatch Cloud. You can dig into encrypted traffic, see who's talking the most in your environment if you wanted to look at different devices there. I've identified some high-risk countries, so now I can see any traffic occurring between my network and the countries that I've designated as high risk because I don't expect to be doing business there. So that's just kind of an overview of the dashboard. One of the first things I'll show you is the types of detections that we have, because that's, you know, at the end of the day, the core of what we do is looking for advanced threat. So whether it's an abnormal user or, you know, potential amplification or denial of service attack, you know, about 100 detections that just work out of the box. You can see that we have detections across AWS for Lambda invocation spikes or serverless functions that are acting weird, Azure, and then a ton for on-prem. So visibility, threat detection, and response across on-premise as well as public cloud environments. You can see that all of our detections, or many of our detections, have been mapped to the MITRE framework. So if this is something you're using, very popular with many of our customers to fill the gaps there. So these are the types of detections that we provide. There's a variety of other watch lists that the team can enable as well. So I talked a little bit on the dashboard around the country watch list, if there's specific things happening there. You can also create watch lists for internal connections. So if you have segmentation policy that you want to monitor, let's say you have a group of PCI servers that should never communicate with outside hosts, you can configure that here. So just a lot of different ways that you can also generate your own custom security events in addition to what we're providing here from a behavioral modeling standpoint. We talked a lot about visibility, so I'll show you the active roles. So again, without you as a customer or our managed service provider partners having to come in and configure all this, Secure Cloud Analytics, formerly known as Stealthwatch Cloud, it comes in and it automatically identifies the different types of devices in your environment. So I've only got a few different types in this demo account, but we're up to about 80 different types of roles that would automatically be classified. So if I was interested in the Apple iOS devices that were connecting to the network, or maybe I'm interested in seeing my domain controllers or database servers, I can see the host name here. I can see that there is an open alert associated with some of these devices. So this just really gives you a really good overview of everything that's been active in the environment over a certain period of time. So as we identify these devices, there's some things that, just out of the box, we know that a print server should never do. And so we have some alerts that generate, on day 0. But then we talked about the baselining and some of the observations. So I'll just give you a quick overview of some of the observations that exist in Stealthwatch Cloud. Again, these are seen as interesting facts about the network, but not necessarily a security concern right away. It's just a piece of evidence that we're starting to collect if things are happening on the network that we deem could be contributing to some sort of attack or activity. So you'll see that there's just a number of different things that we're looking at if you wanted to get into and investigate. Lots of different evidence here, but these are really the building blocks for what generates an alert. And that goes back to that slide that I was talking to earlier. So the building blocks, when things happen in correlation with each other, that's when we start to think, there may be something that, needs to be investigated more deeply. So from here, the team can dive in and look at more information around this specific device, open alerts. So I can see that I have an alert list that's now going to be filtered. So I can see all the different alerts that are open in the environment. If I wanted to dig in, so a role violation, for example, a device was classified as a Windows workstation or some particular role, and now it's acting in a new role. So this was, a domain controller now looking like an FTP client. What does that mean? So we've got some next steps here. Look at the supporting observations. Is this intended? Is this, IP address? Do you expect these changes in your environment? Dive into the device and get more on its history. So you can see daily metrics. Looks like traffic has gone down a little bit. You can see the different roles that it's had associated with it, as well as some different profiles and the percentage of attendance. So just lots of information here. The other thing I'll share, which is really important, is the helpfulness of our alerts. So as we're waiting for this page to load, another thing you'll find is that we really want to make sure that all of our alerts are as helpful as possible and that we're providing as much context as we can, making our customers' job as easy as possible. Because security teams have a lot of work to do and a lot of alerts to go through. So, as we close the alert, we ask our customers and our partners to provide feedback on whether or not it was helpful. And we take this feedback very seriously. It doesn't actually change the behavior unless you adjust it yourself, but it does give our detections research team feedback into which of our alerts are the most helpful versus which ones may be generating noise, so that we can constantly refine our models and make sure that we're providing really high quality output that's actionable for our customers. So I'll just show a couple of other reports that we have here before I hand it back over. But another thing that's very interesting, from both a compliance perspective, policy perspective, is the ability to see the encrypted traffic that's being used in your environment. So if there's something specific you're looking for, whether it be, a particular IP address, or you're looking for any TLS 1.0 being used, you can get a report on that. So, maybe you care about a specific IP address using TLS 1.0 or certain algorithms. So lots of different information here that you can dive into and ensure that you're using secure communications across your network. And there's just a whole lot more, but for the sake of time, I think I've given you a good gist of what network detection and response is all about. So with that, I will pass the ball back over to Christopher.
Thank you, Crystal. This is Robert back. So just to recap there, and that was a great presentation. Thank you for diving into that, right? What Stealthwatch Cloud gives you, just to kind of kick back some of the things you said, getting access to this complete inventory that's going on within the environment. One of the coolest tools that you went through was being able to see the roles, right, and see what roles devices are behaving. For example, whether it's a DNS server, or DHCP, and that helps us in numerous ways, right? We talk a lot around filling in technology to solve business problems or bridge security gaps, but many of us know that technology is just one piece of the puzzle, right? So taking people and process into that mix is essentially what creates a well-rounded security program, right? So one of the things that Stealthwatch Cloud does, or secure analytics, I'll make that mistake a million times as well, right? Is helping you build what we call, or you guys know and gals, as key performance indicators, right? Those roles help create baselines that let you understand where you started and where you need to go, and should something deviate from that behavior, it's constant record keeping and people come into play here. And essentially what we're going to talk through, I'm going to hand it off to John Rossiter, our CISO, our guru Yankee fan here as well, to kind of give us a case study, right? Aspire has gone through this. We've helped many customers out in the greatest times and in the worst times. There's one particular that we're going to reference and how Aspire uses this tool amongst many. So John, over to you.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Crystal. Thanks, everybody else, for taking the time out and attending this with us. And hopefully you come away with some key takeaways here about learning about network traffic analytics in general, and how we can help you as a company with our service around Stealthwatch Cloud and some of the other tools. Just taking a step back here, talking about a little bit about the customer profile that we're going to go ahead and just discuss here in the next few slides. Customer has been an Aspire, has been with Aspire as a customer doing lots of different projects, some security, some UC over the past 3 to 4 years. So pretty strong background, and so they came to us with this issue. They're in the manufacturing segment, approximately 1,000 employees, and they are international, right? So they've got some presence in EU, but they are headquartered here in the U.S. and are looking about approximately 10 sites total. So yeah, they had, and again, just delving into some of the tools that they did have. They had EDR, which is endpoint protection, and they had a few other tools as well. So just diving, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide here. So, and this will dovetail into the next section where I get into the need for this service and why a lot of our customers can definitely utilize it. But the customer was looking at their own EDR deployment and was noticing some anomalies. What those anomalies had ended up showing to them were that they didn't have the right folks looking at the events, number one. And so what ended up happening was they got some alerts. They didn't know exactly what to think of those alerts. They explained away some of those alerts with a software installation, an authorized software installation, as so they thought. And then by the time they realized that they had made a mistake on that, there was a it wasn't even that long of a time lag, but the initial infection really took hold, and then essentially things spread from there. Right. Next slide. And then, of course, from there, and we could definitely piece back what had happened within the EDR platform, is that we saw, a classic case of lateral movement in the environment, right? The customer reached out to Aspire, and we were like, okay, so we have an IR team as well, but they had to actually utilize the IR team that was mandated by their insurance company. So their approach was to deploy another EDR. So that was, one of the things that on our side, from the Aspire side, hey, look, let's go ahead and take a look at the entire environment here. Let's see what the EDR can't. So we recommended, as we do in most cases like this, at a minimum, we said, let's go ahead and get Stealthwatch Cloud out there, as well as Umbrella, right? So both of those products get deployed in quite frankly, SWC or Stealthwatch Cloud. I know the name has changed, but I'm going to continue to use that name for a while here. It was deployed in about an hour and a half. So from the time that we were able to get access to the console, we were able to spin that up. Again, it's one of the easiest things about it is because it's a SaaS product. We're able to spin up an instance in no time. So we're able to get the sensor going and net flow flowing into the environment, right? So we're utilizing core switches, a lot of times access layer switching, routing, firewalls even support NetFlow, and not just Cisco as well. So we're able to get this the console to light up and let us know what's actually happening, traversing not just north-south traffic, but also east-west. Okay, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. All right, so at this point, we were working with the IR team, and it started to become a game of whack-a-mole. So if anybody's familiar with that old arcade game, or that you have the handle and you're trying to hit the moles as they come up, that's essentially what we were dealing with, right? So we were able to utilize the SWC information and trace back where the lateral movement had been initiated, and we were able to track it back to what ended up being a QNAP device, which is a storage or NAS device that had been infected. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting, right around the same time that this infection had taken place, there was a large disclosure about QNAP and some ransomware. So what we had actually found in the environment was pre-ransomware type activity. So we were able to utilize this tool to track back and basically extinguish the threat. So from there, we were able to obviously identify the NAS as being the point of infection. The EDR, because it wasn't deployed everywhere, we didn't have that visibility, right? So you're only as good as your tools, unfortunately, right? So the more of a spotlight we can go ahead and produce, the better, obviously, the visibility within the environment that we can produce and essentially get to the root of the issue. At that point, the IR team, everybody settled down a little bit, and we were able to work with the customer on recovery. And thankfully, at that point, the recovery did not include, a ransomware incident. So we were able to stop it kind of dead in its tracks, before all that had occurred. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So a few real key lessons learned here that I wanted to share. The IR team strategy was very one-dimensional because it relied on EDR only, right? So one of the biggest things, and it's actually my third point, the best strategy is always, for security, is always a layered approach, right? We're able to put together and contextualize information from multiple sources to get to the bottom of an issue, right? Which is exceedingly difficult to do, even in the best of circumstances, right? If you know security, you know that there's absolutely no silver bullet, and the more of the pieces of the puzzle that you can go ahead and utilize to get to the truth, the better you're going to be, right? There's a few links that I wanted to share as well. There's a case study that we worked with Cisco on. It was really well done. There's a link there, and there's also an associated blog post as well. So from there, I just wanted to pivot and talk a little bit more, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide, a little bit more about, obviously, Stealthwatch Cloud is a huge part of the service that we provide to our customers, right? So we have what's called the MDR. I mentioned it earlier, but managed detection and response. The network traffic analytics or network detection that is afforded with that. And as Crystal went through in her demo, though, especially when we're looking at the key highlights or the alarms, when you are able to pair that information with other pieces of security information coming from your different sources, that's when really things, you're able to piece them together and make sense of what's occurring. So often we get, little wisps of issues, small things here and there, maybe behavioral indications or, a few blocks that end up becoming cyclical, right? And the better the more visibility into some of those tools, better off we're going to be and be able to either stop or a threat dead in its tracks, as we did in the case study, or prevent them from even occurring, right? And on the flip side of that, there's also the instance of where things fail, and they're going to fail. And we're able to pick up on, those instances where behavior diverges, right? We have a role that's been set. It's been, using this particular role and conforms to this model for the past 30 days. All of a sudden, we've got an FTP client on a domain controller. What happened here? So often our IT folks are, doing things to kind of get things done, and certainly, a lot of this stuff can be explained away, but, that's what you want to make sure you're doing, is that you're taking that information that's exceptionally valuable and you're tracking those things down. So to that end, these are just a small portion of some of the security operations challenges our customers are facing every day, right? Keeping pace with those threats, learning the new tools. So often we have our customers that do have the right tools deployed. However, they just aren't looking at those tools from a security event perspective, or as in the case of the customer that I mentioned, they weren't sure exactly what it was, all right? So they don't have security analysts or SOC, and they certainly don't have that in a 7x24 manner, right? So being able to do this in real time and actually take evasive action is really key to the service. Next slide, please. And I wanted to also include this slide because I think it's really important here. Time was of the essence in the case study that I mentioned, right? So thankfully we were able to get involved early on, but so often I do see and deal with some project-based customers that we have that it's the lag time from initial infection to full-out ransomware, unfortunately, is about 3 to 4 weeks, right? So that time to response is so critical in getting to the root, right? So again, you're not going to be able to stop all those threats. Users are going to click, and to the best of our ability and some of the knowledge sessions that you have with your users, I mean, I recommend all of them. You always have to go ahead and train up your users, but things are going to slip. People are going to click on things and divulge things that they shouldn't have. So being able to respond in a timely manner is absolutely critical. Understanding the environment from a behavioral analysis standpoint, I can't say it enough, absolutely critical. Go ahead and next slide, please. So Aspire essentially becomes, right, and this is what we seek in our partnerships, is an extension of your security operations. So we will work with existing SOC personnel. A lot of times a customer won't have a SOC, and that's what we're coming in to assist them with. We're giving them that focus that a SOC analyst would be able to do and is trained specifically on these tools, right, and be able to handle those. And again, not just during the hours where most of these events or a lot of these events don't occur. It's actually those those late nights and those weekends where the perpetrators are really active, right? So we're giving you that advanced understanding of that threat intelligence that you probably have invested in, right? That you've taken the time, you understand the need for, but you just don't have, the internal folks to be able to assist you, especially all year round, around the clock. Go ahead and next slide, please. So I like this slide because it kind of gives us an understanding of what I mean by context, right? So really what we're doing with our platform is we're ingesting multiple sources of event and threat data, right? So we had talked about network traffic analytics. That's right in the middle of the slide on the bottom, right? So we pair that with endpoint protection, right? EDR. It's a really big piece of the puzzle. We're also looking at DNS infrastructure, right? So in next generation firewalls, what are they saying? What had happened here? Especially in the last day or two or last week, what can we understand about what that device has been doing, right? So network traffic analytics is definitely going to have a lot of that, but we're able to really start to give a clear, more colorful picture of the environment and of that particular endpoint in general, if we're able to take all of these things and combine them with the assistance of an expert security team of analysis and our incident responders, right? So again, continuously understanding and knowing where to look is really key to understanding how we're really assisting our customers with this endeavor. Go ahead, next slide, please. So here's our advantages, right? So obviously, if we're in an environment working with a customer, their security posture is obviously going to be a lot stronger, right? So we can tell them what's going on, without having them to, take the time to learn every single tool. How does it, conform to the SIM? How does it integrate here? What are the important events that I need to worry about, right? We're doing that for the customer. We're able to take advantage of some of the automation that we have built into the platform over the years and understanding, and we're also utilizing our project-based knowledge as well with these tools, right? So we've been deploying these tools. Aspire has been a strong security partner for 15 plus years of Cisco and other advanced security partners as well, right? So we're taking our knowledge of the field and incorporating that into everything that we do for our customers in this service, right? So, and we're integrating that into a very powerful security architecture. Go ahead, next slide. And so this is the last slide I'll go ahead and share with you. So this is really the core of what it is, of the service that we do provide for our customers. We're very focused as a managed security provider. Our approach is really high touch, and we really thrive on an interaction. We utilize quarterly business reviews where we not only take a look at the data itself that has been provided in the SIM, but we also like to tell a story with a customer, right? We identify trends. We also take a look at their security tools and look at how can we better enforce some of the things that the security tool is actually capable of, right? So we'll go ahead and delve into that. Maybe some policy changes need to take place based on some of the data. So we'll really start to get into that data and understand it for our customers and work with them in identifying those trends, right? So everybody at Aspire is US-based. We don't outsource at all. And we have multiple tiers of folks that you can utilize to get to the bottom or the truth of an issue. Everyone here as well, all of our customers benefit from a dedicated customer success manager as well. All right. So if I had to encapsulate that and just tell the story of Aspire, what makes us unique, those are really big highlights that I wanted to share with you. That was it from my standpoint. I guess at this point, Rob, we'll go ahead and open up for Q&A.
Yeah, we're going to open up for Q&A. Thank you, John. That was fantastic explaining our service. Just a few kind of highlights as, we're going to post a survey. We do have some Q&A. Yeah, I just want to make a few points that you made, right? When you talk around the service, when you talk about secure analytics, Stealthwatch Cloud, right? What I wanted to address was the kill chain and not go through the entire kill chain, but essentially what that brings you to, you can do a quick Google search, anyone on here, what that is, but it's essentially from a cybersecurity model, being proactive versus reactive approach, right? It developed by Lockheed and Martin 20 years ago. But essentially what something like secure analytics helps do is be more reactive in approach, where a lot of our methodology was to react. We're waiting for something to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. And what John mentioned was the mean time to detection, and that was a really important slide, right? What you look at is roughly 100 to 200 days of malware that sits dormant, and it's now a crazy time where threat actors are attacking supply chains, right? It's no longer about delivering the package. It is a business. Between attacking supply chains and attacking software, there was just 4 0-day breaches a few days ago with Google with Google and Android. So we're starting to see threat actors obviously make a change and shift. So having that visibility, as we started our conversation earlier, is really critical, right? And our complementary service is there to partner up, right, and help reduce that mean time to detection. Take the logs, use artificial intelligence, empirical data, knowledge of these tools, right, in order to stop something where it happens. What I typically share is, right, the first way in is never the intended target, right? It's always a vulnerable piece of software or application that gets you onto a network that, and as John mentioned, that Crystal, there's lateral movement, right? So as users, threat actors, someone tries to move laterally, you could tell, right? And I hope we did a good job of explaining between not only how the tool can help you, but how Aspire service is there, that should we see something deviating from normal behavior, there's a playbook that goes into place to protect the assets of the business. So we do have a few questions. If anyone has some more questions, please post them in. One of them is, with Stealthwatch Cloud, is there any server, hardware, appliance, VM inside the networks that sends data to the cloud, or is this completely cloud-based? Crystal, do you want to take a shot at that one?
Sure. So it's a SaaS delivered service, and all of the analytics are happening up in the cloud, but there is a small on-prem ISO device that you install on a VM usually, and the job of that piece of software is really just to collect the float and other telemetry from the private network and get it securely transmitted up to the cloud. So yeah, there's a small on-prem device. When we're looking at the public cloud deployments, it's 100% API driven. So we can get all the telemetry out of AWS or Microsoft Azure through APIs without needing a sensor or an on-prem device in the cloud environments.
Great.
Yeah,
thank you.
I would just add as well that the sensor, the on-prem sensor, is basically a Ubuntu device, and it can be installed on anything, practically anything, even a Raspberry Pi. So to get it up and running, very simple, easy to deploy. We typically will do it in VMware, obviously, but works just as well in pretty much any of the other ones that I've worked with, including Hyper-V and some of the other ones that are out there as well.
And the follow-up to that question was just, all the public clouds. Can you just name the clouds you interface with? That's what we have recorded.
Oh, sure. Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform are all 100% API driven, but we can also use that sensor that we were just talking about for other public cloud infrastructures if desired. So if you have Oracle or IBM or Alibaba, then we can use the sensor to get that same flow telemetry back to Stealthwatch Cloud.
More questions here.
As you're looking at the questions, Rob, I just wanted to kind of iterate on what you were saying. So as the product manager for Secure Cloud Analytics, of course, I take great pride in what we do and what our product brings to the table. But I think something that you hit on that's just so important for everybody to understand is that there's not a single security product that's going to, secure organizations of the future. You have got to have multiple vantage points in order to see what's happening. You have to have endpoint detection and response. You really need that network view of the world. You need threat intelligence. You need, DNS protection. There's no single bullet that's going to, secure our customers going forward. And so you really need to make sure that you're getting as many different advantages over the attacks that are going on as you can.
No, it's a great point. Yeah, we might not be here if there was the one tool that fixed everything, right? As technology continues to come on, we started earlier talking about, the plethora of devices we have, IoT related working. So yeah, no, that's a great point, Crystal. Yes, there's not one tool. Another question came in real fast. I know we're not pressed for time, but I want to get through some of these. John, could you talk a little bit about the process of our managed detection and response service? The question was, what can we expect as part of the onboarding process?
Great question. Okay, so essentially it depends on the tools that a customer would have. Say they would have DNS protection, say they have EDR, say they have Stealthwatch Cloud. We would go through, make sure that we have access to those. Our SOC analysts would get access to those. And we would deploy, typically, we have a couple of options, but we would typically deploy an on-prem appliance that would contain SIM and loggers that would, depending upon those, those solutions that we're supporting, either we'll be taking those directly from those devices, typically with a next generation firewall, for instance, it's syslog directly to the SIM, or we're making API calls. In the case of like Stealthwatch Cloud, we'll be pulling those events on a specific interval, usually every 5 to 10 minutes. And then, the SIM is where, everything kind of collapses into, and then that's where all our rules are written. And that's also where we can potentially take evasive action if necessary, by running some of our automated scripts. And there's quite a few ways that but that's the gist of it. So essentially, we deploy an appliance. We have a cloud option as well. We get all those to feed into the SIM. We work on escalation, and then from there, you become aligned with the SOC team and know the members, and again, we give each other feedback, and that is a huge part of our QBR process. I can't stress that enough. Is that we're not only giving the customer reports, but we're also taking feedback from the customer as well on what things can be improved potentially with communication, which is key. A lot of times, we'll also set up. Hey, look, this is what we're going to do in case of X, right? If and we can't find anybody, can we take evasive action based on the tools? In a lot of cases, we absolutely can, right? So that's some of the things that get hammered out in the onboarding process.
No, thank you for that answer. And I want to stress on the quarterly business reviews. I talked about that a few times. We've mentioned it a few times. And there's many things that make the service successful. What I think is sitting down, having intelligent conversations with our clients, right, and having that baseline, now understanding where to go, what the problem is, right? We say this a lot. You can't fix what you don't see. You can't fix what you don't know. You can't fix right? So having this visibility from this tool, having the people, right, develop the process, right, is essentially what marries the tool sets and the service together to essentially help our clients scale, right, to not be the next
combining those tools is really key. Combining those tools is absolutely key, right, Rob? And to Crystal's point, my points earlier, right, contextualizing that information that's absolutely, what our goal is with the service.
Great. So it looks like that's all the questions we have. Coming up to the hour here. If anyone else has anything else, I just want to thank everyone again for taking the time out of their day. A survey will be going out. We asked any follow-ups. There's a question in the chat. I will follow up with the gentleman inside the chat. Tim, thank you. We'll contact you afterwards. But I thank everyone for the time. If you want to learn any more about the product, please fill out the survey. You know how to contact whether it's your Cisco account manager, your Aspire account manager, and we'd be happy to further this conversation with you if you found this helpful, and we can help. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep, thank you all.